The Reveni are you can see scraps of their culture all over them, from the war paint that decorates their body to the clothing and things that they wear. And they're rampaging through the world trying to exterminate all of humanity. Fortunately, Avil has access to a whole bunch of different kinds of skills that can make these battles easier. The gold armor is actually impervious to Avil's rune strike, except for a series of latches that hold it on. One of the can use it like a grappling hook to pull himself all around it. And so it's often much quicker to fight them by leaving the armor on and whipping from one piece to the next. The iron armor is also, and Avil has to actually aim his rune strike at these locks and hit them as they're moving through the air. Potentially, it can take multiple hits to actually take out the locks themselves, so even just hitting them once isn't necessarily good enough. But one of the upgrades that Avil can get makes it so that's not true anymore, and he only needs to hit them once in order to be able to take them out. The bone armor is actually, and in order to disable the magical field that protects them, you have to put out the fire that's in their eyes from one of the Reveni's attacks to actually be able to destroy the armor once that fire goes out. But upgrading his ability to slow down time makes it much easier to get in there. Similarly, the spiked armor ogres have all of these parts. Avil cannot land or he will be damaged. Getting the abilities that allows him to better control the rates at which he falls makes it a lot easier to bait out its attacks, dodge them at the last second, and keep doing this until the stress breaks up enough that that armor actually shatters. The Ab is a bright steel armor. This armor is impossible for Avil to destroy, and that means that if there's any particular part of a Reveni by bright steel armor, you cannot dismember whatever that part of him is. And if you not actually be able to kill it, you may need to achieve your mission objectives in a different way, say by leading it away from the area. If you run that ogre's legs and bring it down to him. And so skills that enable him to jump higher, climb further, or generally make it easier or effective than they would against other ogres where he might be able to actually dismember the legs. Woo. Final version. With that said, let's get started. Extinction takes place in a lush, vibrant fantasy world, full of painterly textures and bright, rich colors. But this world has come under siege by an organized army of massive otherworldly invaders known as the Reveni, who have begun systematically eradicating humanity off the face of the planet. You play as Avil, one of the last of the Sentinels, a legendary group of warriors with the skills and tools necessary in order to take down these massive foes. The gameplay in Extinction emphasizes high-speed traversal around the environment. In addition to the basic jump and double jump, Avil can also run horizontally along walls, run vertically straight up walls, air dash through the sky, come floating back down gently, can bounce off of springy objects in the environment such as building awnings or treetops, and can use his whip like a grappling hook to get around. When he does this, time slows down, giving him time to plan his next move and make split-second decisions. Of course, Avil's ultimate goal is to save as much of humanity as possible. He needs to protect them from the constant onslaught of the ogres and their minions. He does this by engaging them in real-time, skill-based combat. In addition to his series of regular strikes, he can also execute powerful AoEs, launch enemies into the sky, slam them back down to the ground, cancel his attacks into rune strikes for massive damage, and cancel his attacks into dodges in order to evade his opponent's strikes. Of course, the star of the show is Avil's combat with the ogres. Now, with their minions defeated, it's time for Avil to take on their master, one of the enormous Reveni who has been rampaging through the countryside, obliterating everything in our fully destructible environments. The ogres themselves are fully dismemberable, but they wear armor in order to protect themselves. In order to take this beast down, Avil must first destroy that armor. This is done via a powerful charged-up rune strike. Once the armor is destroyed, Avil can then dismember the limb underneath. Dismembering limbs like this builds energy which Avil will need to ultimately be able to strike the finishing blow. And as you can see, this ogre is none too happy about the loss of its leg, and Avil has to dodge its attacks while also trying to remove the remaining armor in order to get to the limbs beneath them. This is an extremely dangerous situation to be in because if any of these blows actually manages to hit Avil, it will be death in a single hit. Having now absorbed enough power and weakened the ogre sufficiently, Avil is now ready to go ahead and strike the finishing blow. Using the traversal options we showed off earlier, Avil is able to climb up the ogre's back, take out its helmet, and deliver the coup de grace. That was a relatively easy fight against a relatively basic opponent, but not all enemies are so simple. Depending on what armor, weapons, and abilities they have, each ogre presents its own unique challenges, and requires different strategies and tactics to take down. Here, we have an example of an ogre decked out in gold armor. This armor does open up some new traversal options for reveal, but as you can see, it's also much harder to remove. Each piece is protected by multiple latches that must be destroyed in order to remove it. 4 of them on each leg piece, and 2 on each arm piece. Having finally destroyed all the latches, Avil is now able to dismember the first of this ogre's legs. Moving on to the arms, however, is now much more difficult, as they are constantly moving, making it hard to target those tiny latches. Avil must dodge the ogre's attacks and their minions' attacks while doing this. It has now taken sufficiently long to take down this ogre that its leg has regenerated, and it stood back up, but it no longer matters. Flush with energy from his last kill, Avil is ready. He climbs up the back of the ogre and is presented with one final challenge, staying up there long enough to take out its remaining armor. First, he removes the helmet, and then the collar. With these 2 obstacles out of the way and its neck exposed, Avil can finally go in for the kill, and so the second ogre falls. This was just a short glimpse into some early pre-alpha gameplay, and there's much more to come. Go to Extinction.com.